Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14 here with Power Rankings, the Halloween edition. Our Power Rankings are sponsored by BetOnline. The last of the major pro sports leagues has kicked off. BetOnline is your top spot for all your NBA action this season with MLB postseason, NFL, college football, and NHL in full swing. BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions. Get everything NBA at your fingertips. Use both desktop and mobile access for every sport anytime. Head to BetOnline today to get in on the action. Don't forget to use the promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to receive 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. Well, our power rankings start at the bottom, and at the bottom all year has been Vanderbilt at number 14. Don't see the need to really belabor the point there. The Commodores were uncompetitive in a loss at Ole Miss, which brings us to 13 South Carolina, a two-win team against a brutal schedule. But the Gamecocks just have too many deficiencies on both sides of the ball right now. And in this league where there's a lot of decent to good teams, you pay for that. And South Carolina with the bill of health, I think it might have been a different season, but it's not. And that's where we are with the Gamecocks, Blake.
Last 4 games at home. So, yeah.
Potential to rise.
Play another road game again. Jacksonville State, Vanderbilt, Kentucky, Clemson, all left. So, yeah, I think they'd love a strong finish. But, season's just kind of gotten away from them to this point at 2-6.
Well, the season has also gotten away from Arkansas. But I submit to you the Razorbacks have lost a lot of close games and are a better team than the 2-6 record. I keep a composite power poll of a few major power rankings. Arkansas is 40 in that nationally. And, of course, that is more predictive than it is descriptive. In other words, if you've played a lot of close games against good teams, a close loss is almost the same as a good win. So, but look, the bottom line is you need to win games. Arkansas hasn't. And that's why the Razorbacks are at 12, although I still think there's enough there to pull a surprise or two down the stretch.
Well, I could have went to bat for Arkansas before the game against Mississippi State. Now, I'm not so sure they are better than their record suggests.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying. They play a lot of close games, but that was the game that just completely, I thought, demoralizing. Like, that was just one that the way you lose that game, now you come off the bye. Obviously, they've made a change since then, offensive coordinator, but it's brutal. I know Arkansas fans very unhappy. No SEC wins, 2-6. Now I got to head to Florida up next.
I'm not certain that Mississippi State is the 11th best team in the SEC, but you kind of got to put them here by default. 4 wins, beat Arkansas, at Arkansas no less. And so Mississippi State, for lack of a better option, is 11th.
Yeah, at some point, wins have to matter more than close losses in Week 10, entering Week 10, and that's where we are. Mississippi State, they got 4 wins. They got an SEC win. Like I said, South Carolina has 2 wins. Arkansas has 2 wins. Vanderbilt, So yes, they have to be here. Whether we can pick apart certain issues and all that, but yeah, that's where they are, and very intriguing game, and probably maybe it's like a much more winnable game coming up against Kentucky this weekend than we would have thought maybe a month or so ago.
Yeah, and by similar token, Auburn's got to be 10 by virtue of beating Mississippi State. The win at Cal looking a little better now. Auburn is kind of a quiet 4-4, not a lot of meat on the bone in terms of the resume. But I think the Tigers are pretty good. Hugh Freeze has gotten it done surprisingly on defense more than on offense. And Auburn, again, the composite power rankings that I'm kind of keeping up with nationally, number 31. It's not an exciting team. It's limited offensively, but they've done a good job being competitive. Remember, lost to Georgia by 7 points not long ago. Really tough to beat at home. And Auburn is kind of one of those teams. It's hard to slot the Tigers anywhere other than 10 because you can't really make a case for moving them back. Did beat Mississippi State, and it's hard to make a case for moving them ahead of a lot of the teams that are left, although maybe number 9 is debatable.
Well, I mean, they had one of the toughest 4-game stretches of anybody's schedule.
Yeah.
At A&M, home against Georgia, at LSU, home against Ole Miss. So I thought that was kind of a let out the frustration game against Mississippi State. That's sort of what I expected, and that's what you got. And so, yeah, I think now, the rest of the way, schedule sets up a lot nicer, even though you've got, 2 straight road games here at Vanderbilt and Arkansas, but both very winnable based on where those two teams are at. Home game against Mexico State, and then, of course, the Iron Bowl against Alabama. So potential very strong finish, I think, for Auburn here.
Kentucky at 9. Again, team that's hard to slot anywhere else. 3 losses in a row at home to 3, I guess, top 15 teams or top 15-ish teams. The schedule the rest of the way out, not easy. I don't know what else to do with Kentucky at this point. There were some bright signs with the passing game, so that's something. But the big wins have been yet to come for the most part, other than the win against Florida.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I think it's similar to Ole Miss last year. Great start. Still felt like you didn't know what to make of them, but once they hit the tough part of their schedule, things can kind of unravel a bit. And, you lose by 38 at Georgia, lose by 17 at home to Missouri, lose one at home by 6 to Tennessee. At a certain point, that adds up. And I think just, the confidence probably not there, like we said, heading into Starkville in a game that looks a lot tougher than we would have thought a while back. So a crucial game heading into that, because remember, Alabama comes to town following week. So
Texas A&M at 8, again, for lack of a better idea. Best win is probably Auburn so far. The computers still like A&M as a top 15-ish type national team, but the results have been lagging.
Yeah, just kind of, I feel like this part of the group, really, I honestly, I think beyond this, I may even last week with this very similar power rankings. I don't think like there's been any movement in the top 8 or so of the rankings in terms of how things have looked over the past couple of weeks. I could be wrong. Again, these are our staff composite rankings. I don't think there's been any movement. I think A&M was here last week. They're here again. And I know they beat South Carolina, but like we said, that's a team that's struggling. And yeah, I mean, it's still a very interesting finish, right? In terms of all the stuff about Jimbo Fisher and where things stand. Got to go to Ole Miss. We got Mississippi State, and of course, you still got to go to LSU. So interesting stretch run coming up here for the Aggies.
Next up, the Florida Gators at 8. Been an all over the map season for Florida. Beat Tennessee. Looked awful against Kentucky. Got its doors blown off by Georgia. But some good things. Tough schedule, and here we are with the Gators at 7.
Yeah, I mean, like we said, Georgia can do that to anybody. We've already seen that this season. I mean, it's in that kind of setting when Georgia gets going, they're hard to stop. And so I didn't necessarily come away just completely changing any opinions on Florida. I think they are kind of the team that we still thought they'd be at this point of the season. Now, at least, we didn't think they'd maybe be to this point at 5-3 going into the season. But still, again, they're another one. We talk about schedules. We said going into the season, they have the toughest schedule in the country. The Arkansas game doesn't look as tough now based on where the Hogs are, but those final 3 games maybe overall look tougher just because of where Missouri's at. We didn't think Missouri may be a top 15 team to this point, but, still got to go to LSU, still got to go to Missouri, got the game against Florida State. So, it's going to be an interesting finish for Billy Napier's team here.
Now we get into the tier of teams that still have a snowball's chance or maybe a snowflake's chance in some of these cases with a couple of these at a playoff berth. And I know Tennessee's got 2 losses, but hear me out. You win at Missouri, you beat Georgia, although I think the chances of them getting the SEC title game would be slim. That would take Georgia, in addition to that, probably losing to Missouri. So I guess there's a chance. I wouldn't put any amount of money on it. But the Vols have been a pretty good team. The defense is carried the way, I think, more than people expected, although not here if you listen to us talk preseason about the Vols. Tennessee checking in at number 15. Big games ahead, not this week, but at Missouri and Georgia. You win a couple of those, the Vols stock will be rising. We'll see if they're good enough to do it.
Yeah, I mean, aside from the second half against Alabama, Tennessee's been really good since the Florida game. Mm-hmm. And so so I mean, overall, that's a better body of work. And again, I talk about no movement in terms of rankings. I forgot these 2 would flip based on kind of where they're at.
Right.
Because we did have Florida ahead of Tennessee, I think the past couple of weeks. But they flip now with Tennessee's win at Kentucky. And I mean, the Vols, we said, they are in a very fascinating spot, heading into that Missouri game and Georgia game. And A lot on the line, but of course, based on what happens with Georgia and Missouri this weekend. But yeah, lot at stake for the Vols. And like I said, I think they've looked pretty good overall, except for just that stretch against Alabama, which does and probably will at the end of the season feel like a huge missed opportunity.
Yeah, and if somebody wants to object and say, "Hey, wait, you got Tennessee ahead of Florida. Florida beat them head to head and kind of decisively." We're in that stretch of teams really
We can't play
between
that with every
Tennessee and
team at this point.
between
Yeah.
Tennessee and Kentucky, where it's going to fall apart somewhere for somebody. So we just kind of go with the best team. Okay, I think Missouri at 5. It's kind of the where else do you rank them at this point based on the 7-0 record, the win over Kansas State, um, you know, the win at Kentucky. Even Memphis on a neutral field is a good win. The only blemish on the resume is a loss to LSU at home in a game that went into the final minute or two. So, yeah, Missouri at 5, I think, would be hard to argue based on results.
Yep. You can see some or Missouri fans wanting them to be a little higher. And again, this is where you get into this crop of teams that all feel like top 15 teams. And so, all 5 of these that are left. And so, yeah, I mean, what else do we say, right? Haven't already said about what this game means this weekend against Georgia, what's on the line, what's at stake. But hey, Missouri's got as good a chance, I think, as anybody, just based on how they played to this point. And yeah, so we'll see what happens.
LSU at 4, beat Missouri head to head in Columbia. Offense scoring, 47 points a game and looking really good. We'll find out how good the defense is coming up. It's improved, but is that a product of the schedule or is that genuine improvement?
It's wild to think, Chris. LSU did not score a single touchdown this past week in SEC football.
That's true.
Hard to believe that offense could not score a single touchdown, but of course they didn't play. And yeah, now they are going to try to keep that offense going against Alabama's defense, which again will be a lot of fun with these 2 heavyweight showdowns this weekend.
Ole Miss at 3. The Rebels are going to try to thread that. Not going to be in the title game, probably, but can they get into the playoffs needle? Going to be a delicate needle to thread, but some nice wins for the Rebels. Beat LSU, beat Tulane, won at Auburn. Also Arkansas, Georgia Tech, for whatever that's worth. Ole Miss looking pretty good. Kind of an underwhelming second half against Vandy, but the Rebels did what they needed to do in the first half.
Yeah, if you have an underwhelming second half in the SEC and win by 26, you're doing okay.
Right.
Look, a lot of people, I think, would argue that Ole Miss is the toughest challenge that Georgia has left. And now those people may be discounting Missouri still to this point, which I wouldn't do. But I think it's fair to make an argument like that based on, what Ole Miss can do offensively. And so, yeah, we'll see. But of course, before they get there, they got to play the Aggies this weekend.
All right. Number 2, the Alabama Crimson Tide. Alabama had little margin for error after that Texas loss back in September. Guess what? Nick Saban has figured out how to go unbeaten between then and now. And really, well, I shouldn't say the tougher part of the schedule is over because none of this is easy. You look at the remaining games. LSU this weekend, at Kentucky, Chattanooga, and then at Auburn in a game, the Iron Bowl we know is always tricky no matter how good these teams are, or almost always, not always. But I think it could be this year given the makeup of these 2 teams. Alabama at 2, so of course that means Georgia at number 1 where they have been all year. Blake, any comment on these 2 teams?
Well, if you want to find out where these teams are going to be ranked in the first edition of the college football playoff rankings, you can do that. You're probably watching this after the Daily Show, but if you go watch the Daily Show on Tuesday, Chris and Gavin will be giving their predictions on the first set of rankings, which, of course, these 2 teams will play a prominent role in, I think. So find all that on the channel. And yeah, everything else, Chris, we've got everybody ready. It's like, what else can I say about Georgia and Alabama? So I'm just going to plug everything we have on the channel in this spot. But yeah, check out everything else we got on the channel. Like we talked about, those 2 big games coming up this weekend, Georgia, Missouri, Alabama, LSU. Previews and predictions are already up for those. So hit that subscribe button and find them on the channel.
It's a fun time of year. We're here for it. Again, thank you to our sponsor, Bet Online, for helping make this possible. For Blake Lovell, I'm Chris Lee. Thank you for watching. We'll see you again soon.